We have a product panel discussion now. So the topic on the screen, opportunities and challenges in generative AI adoption in your products. So I'll be handing over the mic to my colleague, Rinku, and she'll be taking ahead.
Good morning, everyone. This is Rinku. I head the operations for Unitalk. It's a platform for hybrid events from the house of Neobrick. Of late, there's a very common buzzword that is, a point of that has dominated all our conversation tables in every corner of the world, and that is generative AI. Generative AI has sparked a lot of curiosity as well as excitement. While there is a lot of hype around this word, it also brings in a lot of opportunities and also comes with a lot of challenges. So now this is going to be our topic of discussion for this track of product panel. So without any further delay, let me start introducing our panelists today. First up, we have Ms. Divya Sharma. She's a Senior Director, Product Management, Salesforce. She's got 2 decades of experience. She's a seasoned product manager specializing in B2B, B2B2C enterprise applications. Her experience spans in domains of human capital management, CRM, and financial services. A warm welcome to you, Divya. Please have your seat. Next, we have Mr. Chandrasekhar Sarma. He's a head of product management, ADP. He comes with 18 years of experience and more than a decade of experience in product management. He's worked with multiple global products in telecom, banking, and enterprise software industry, alumni of NIT and ISB. A warm welcome, Chandra. And next up, we have Mr. Saurabh Mishra, Global Director of Product Optum, an accomplished product leader with 2 decades of experience in digital healthcare space. He's a lifelong learner and also a visiting faculty members at a lot of B schools, and he's currently leading the Optum RX platform portfolio. Welcome, Saurabh. And next up, we have Mr. Anupam Sarda, Vice President of Products, High Radius. He has 2 decades of experience in product management, professional services, strategy, and operations. He's consistently driven results in extremely fast-paced environment. Welcome, Anupam. Last but not the least, we have Abhilash Rao Salbaji, Director of Product Management, RealPage. Close to 2 decades of experience and more than 18 years of experience in product management. He's also a certified Scrum professional and a counseling psychologist. And he's also a board member of PLF, Hyderabad chapter. Welcome, Abhilash. And Abhilash is going to be our moderator today. Over to you, Abhilash. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinku. How was the tea? Keeping you up? We'll try to make sure that you don't fall asleep through this. We have got amazing panel. Anupam, Divya, Saurabh, Chandra, thank you so much. How is AI treating you so far? Keeping the job safe? It's already in our phones. It's everywhere, right? So this is a panel that we're going to discuss about how adopting AI in our products, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges. And after OpenAI, everyone is like, we need AI in our products. And especially for product leaders and product managers, we are scratching, how do we fit? Or are we force-fitting AI into our use cases? What is that we are actually adding value or devaluing our products by making it complicated for our users? So we'll try to focus on that in this session, get some insights from this panel and see how they are doing it in their respective products that they are leading, right? So starting off with Chandra, right? You are on my left, so very close. I'll start off with you.
I didn't know that when I was seating here. So.
I didn't know, but eventually it happened. At ADP, right? As head of products and especially from leading the product team from India, right? What is that you as a leader, the strategy that you are, what is ADP thinking about the Gen AI, and what are you thinking about? What is the strategy about Gen AI and ADP?
So I think what I'm going to say is probably more of a company strategy, not my strategy, right? So
Yep, company
from
strategy.
From a product standpoint, so we work in the space of human capital management, which is all the way from hire to retire, the life cycle of an employee. And so when we say that, we are essentially talking about multiple events across the employee's life cycle. And many of these events could be very, very personal. Let's say somebody getting promoted, somebody going on mat leave, pat leave, and so on. So there are multiple life events associated throughout the entire journey. So that is one consideration we have when we are thinking about the strategy. The second thing is we are a global player. So we work across 140 different countries. And across these countries, the culture is different, the compliances are different, languages, and so on. So there is a diversity that we need to keep in account when we are building products. So when we put both of these together, I think generative AI makes the compelling case, because you're trying to actually make sense of a lot of data across multiple countries. You are trying to have those human-like conversations. And that's how we are thinking about generative AI, that generative AI sits at the center and puts the human at the center across all the transactions that employee goes through. So that's how we are thinking.
Amazing, amazing. We all are employees, and ADP is already thinking about how get the human at the center, and I see a lot of opportunities. We'll delve more into that. Right. Saurabh, Optum is into healthcare, and it's a lot into healthcare, and healthcare is one of the complex domain to bring any change. How is Optum thinking about approaching Gen AI in the products?
So, to give you a context, the US healthcare, and there are studies, it spends around $1 trillion per year on the operation cost towards healthcare. There are studies, various studies, and one of the study that I'll quote is by Accenture, which says that there is an opportunity to save $150 billion per year if AI is used. And people who are not from healthcare, just to help you digest this, the India's total healthcare expenditure, government plus private, is $120 billion per year. So we are talking about a saving which is more than how much we spend in India per year. Optum is no different. I think our focus is two goals. One is to reduce our cost using AI, and second, to improve our NPS to help us serve our members, our clients better. So these are the two strategies or the two goals that we have identified as part of Optum, and that's where we are focusing to bring in the AI and Gen AI.
Reducing cost and increasing NPS. Every company wants that. That's the driving. Right. That's great. Divya, right? Oh, I think, to my knowledge, no company cannot run their CRM without Salesforce. Salesforce is everywhere. Salesforce touched so many touch points internally and externally, and it touches a lot of people in their jobs. How is Salesforce, strategy on adopting Gen AI into the products?
We are seeing Gen AI play a very significant role in our product strategy. And some of the things that we are trying to look at, use cases. Which use cases should be a good fit for Gen AI? Like areas where we can increase productivity, where we can gain efficiencies, and where we can enhance the entire customer experience. So for example, when you're talking about emails, right? How do you kind of create those personalized experiences? So we are using Gen AI to help solve that, because now your Gen AI offers that context awareness and therefore offer personalized experiences. And these are important because in CRM world, you want to build those relationships. The other aspect, like I said, can we automate, bring in productivity, efficiencies? A lot of times we have seen our users spend manual effort doing tasks like creating emails, drafting emails. summarizing information, or even like creating reports. Now think a relationship manager at a bank, instead of doing all of these activities manually, they are able to leverage Gen AI and therefore gain efficiencies to create more time for themselves. Now they can spend that time to do high value tasks.
Yep. Yes.
So these are some of the use cases, but I think from a product strategy point of view, other aspects that are also in consideration for Salesforce, and it's one of the core values, is trust. So when we are putting together a strategy, we ensure that the Gen AI follows and adheres to trust, which includes transparency, data privacy, security, and like he mentioned, the compliance remains an important aspect, and especially for regulated industries, because Salesforce has offerings, industry-specific offerings, and some of these are regulated industries. So being able to address to those needs also form a part of product strategy.
Well, that is great. And you're going to touch upon the regulatory and sensitive aspects as we go forward. But that's, I think, because we live in the technology world, we think, a lot of the tools that are available, like Grammarly's and AI, is easy for emails. But especially when in a B2B business where, like the bank example that you said, the people who actually serve the customers a forefront, this is a lot of manual tasks, a lot of hours that they put in to kind of summarize a call that they had with the customer. And that's great, looking for it. All right, moving on. Anupam, like you are in, High Radius is in a different domain, which is a lot into financials and things. And as common as me, who's using my financial, investments or anything, we always want someone to help us to do right investments or at least track what is happening in our life, right? So not into the personal, but the area that High Radius is in, as a product leader, what are those strategies that High Radius are working and how are you looking into it?
I think Divya covered most of it in terms of productivity improvements, process improvement, and all of it. The way we look at it is focus on the why you're solving the problem. Don't get carried away with how you're solving the problem. So we all have the tendency to kind of go after the next shiny thing.
Obviously.
Right? And okay, now Gen AI, how can I use Gen AI for every problem? Don't fall into the trap.
What's fitting?
Focus on why you're solving the problem. If Gen AI works for it, use it.
Yep.
Great. But we all are like kids in the candy shop, right? Anything new, we want to kind of go after it.
Correct.
A few years ago, it was Bitcoin or the blockchain technology. Then it was something else. Now it is Gen AI. I'm not saying the hype is not real, but just don't get too sucked into it. Still focus on the why. And that's what we tell our product managers, product leaders. As someone called on the previous session, right? Be in love with the problem, why you're solving it.
Yep.
Don't miss out on that.
Not with the product. Yeah. Yep. Thanks. And actually, that kind of summarizes, we are already looking into the products. We have a strategy. Companies are having those strategy, right? Like you mentioned about the why, right? So as the technology is available, we wanted to apply that. And it says it's Gen AI, I can use it for A, B, C, D purpose, which could be probably an automation, and not really a Gen AI use case, right? So what are those opportunities that you are seeing, especially the whys, in your respective areas? Like in the case of in human capital, in healthcare, you want to take any use case, like you started with the use case about on the customer on the emails aspect. Are there any other opportunities that you see as a whole? As a whole, not.
See, in Salesforce, we have a lot of use cases because we cater to sales, service, marketing, commerce, and then industry-specific solutions as well. Now, in FSC world, in the financial services, things like being able to summarize the customer interactions, because when the RM is meeting with the customer, being able to capture that information, and that is a pretty big meeting transcription of notes, being able to summarize that for easy insights, being able to, for example, solve for the service response. When there is a service ticket, being able to respond in context. What we want to also look at is how do we now create this agent-assisted where it is a human in the loop, but then the AI is doing a lot of work in the background. And there's another one which, there's a Salesforce event called Dreamforce, which recently happened. one of the things that was announced there is Agent Force, where we are now looking at agents to be autonomous in solving some of the problems. And one of the use cases which was practically resolved with GenAI was there's this wily customer which handles all the, it helps the parents be ready with all the books and also the kids are ready to go back to school and they want all the books. And because it's a season when they're coming back to school, there's a huge volume or spike in the requirement, and therefore a lot of cases flow in. Earlier, they used to get like people, hire staff for that surge requirements. But what was solved this time with GenAI was they implemented an agent force that was autonomously handling that surge in service request. And that was a 40% efficiency gain.
Wow, that's nice.
So we have practical aspects of how you can solve problems, and customers are finding value in those. And I think this is just a start. We will see a lot more with use cases which automate, which summarize, which do assistance where you still have human in the loop, or they become autonomous where you don't need a human in the loop, and these are processes. Obviously, you create a handoff, a seamless handoff to the person when it goes beyond reach or where the agent cannot answer the question.
That's where kind of automating a lot of the repeated stuff, where the human can focus on the real human interactions.
Correct.
The value that cannot replace a human, right? Anupam, opportunities that you are looking into your products.
So products, I'll not talk about too much, confidentially, but what we've been able to do and see a huge impact has been on the engineering productivity. So for any product org, engineering bandwidth is like the most important resource out there, right? By GenAI and some more interventions, we've been able to get to 25% more capacity with the same engineers, right? And it's just been about automating a lot of things that they were doing that was taking away time.
They were writing code. Code was automated.
Some amount of that was automated as well by using this.
How many of you are engineers here?
So,
like developers?
Using some tool, code generators.
Oh, yeah. Do your jobs. You're just hearing that.
Unit test cases, documentation, right? It is, and it is improving. What it was 9 months ago to now, substantial improvement and more coming in, right? So that's been a big focus area for us, and I think we're seeing a huge value there. And as she talked about in products, customer value is a huge use case even we are kind of going after. But there are a lot of use cases, especially in the finance domain, where there's a lot of data that you're consuming and trying to make sense of before you get on a meeting or a call or a customer, right?
Yeah.
Giving those tools to the customer saying, this is your data, this is the insight, this is how we kind of got it, just makes those conversations much easier.
Nice, nice. That was a joke about the developers, but I think every organization is also looking at not just at the customer, but also internally, because there was a time where, especially the QA engineers used to spend a lot of time. We were only focused on automation, but also on the development side, the unit test cases. How can it be caught even before it goes to QA? So there are a lot of opportunities that, like as a product leader within RealPage that I'm looking at, can we apply these GenAI applications within organization? Can it actually look at certain user stories and acceptance criteria? Can it validate better when it is handed over to engineering? And can engineer look at those acceptance criteria, create unit test cases, automated unit test cases, that leading into QA. So we are sprinting faster. That helps us sprint faster. Amazing. Chandra.
I think most of the points are taken, but I'll try. So, so the way we look at GenAI in ADP is we are basically trying to see how would GenAI increase, obviously, the productivity of the engineering team, the productivity of our implementation team. Implementation teams are teams which are actually trying to onboard clients on our products. How can I increase the productivity of our sales team? In addition to what we can offer to our end customers. So I think so on the for the end customer side, we have obviously a publicly announced offering which is called as ADP Assist. So this is a conversational chatbot which is very specific, which solves for specific problems across the entire journey from hire to retire. But if I were to kind of summarize at a very uber level on where we are using Gen AI, I think it's summarization across the board, calls, documents, anything, so that you can actually mine a lot of meaningful information in an ocean of documents and so on. So that's one. Second is giving that personalized and a very targeted sort of an experience to the end user. The end user could be an internal end user, could be an external. External could be an employee, client, whoever, even the buyer. So sometimes it's not just the user, even the buyer. So that's the second broad use case. Third is consuming all of the information around the compliances, which is very complex. And when it comes to people systems like ours, we are dealing with compliances across payroll, time, HR, and so on. So there's no end to the amount of compliance which we can deal with. And we as a company, our core value proposition is compliance, and which is where we are focusing. So these are the three broad buckets where we are trying to do things across the various personas.
Thanks. I think you touched upon one of the important part about the compliance, right? So if I just summarize the kind of the primary focus that's happening is about looking at the data that it is flowing and summarizing it to assist the operations or the humans that are in touch with humans, right? So in every aspect of the company. But to do that, to even deliver that, you are dealing with zettabytes of data, and in different formats, different sources, all sort of compliance, all sort of data. And then there is other aspect, which is compliance, ethics, right, governance, right, especially in healthcare industries. Or this, while you are trying to focus on increasing NPS and this, as you have to deal with a lot of this, what is that the governance a product manager has to be aware of? And some of those guardrails that we need to focus even before we venture into building a product.
So before I come to the governance, let me decouple the healthcare industry. So think of it as three concentric circles, one within another. The innermost circle we call as the core healthcare, which deals with the very sensitive data, which we call as medical records for the patient. The secondmost layer circle is around ancillary services, which also have a fair bit of medical record, but there is some operational aspect as well as the nursing data, the other things. And the outermost layer is the operational data. And these are the services which are more operational in nature, where marketing, HR, or operations, or legal, these kind of services comes in. Now, within Optum and healthcare industry as such, AI is impacting all the three layers, right? The compliance increases as we move inside into the circle. The more sensitive the data is, the more legal compliance we are susceptible to, we have to comply to. So the guardrails, the regulatory checks and balances are changing with each of these circles. In US specifically, there is FDA, which very closely scrutinizes everything, especially in the innermost circle. We need to get certified through them, and certification is okay, but I think the challenge comes because nowadays we are talking about self-learning models. Every time a model learns, you again have to go back for certification, right? So in healthcare, that's a challenge. We need to make our model which are stable. If the model changes, the entire cycle has to repeat. So those are definitely some challenges, and it's an evolving field. So even the FDA is evolving their guidelines constantly, and with new guidelines, the new processes comes in place. So there's a constant push that keeps happening. Okay, something new has come in. Again, go through the rigor. But I think it's good. The checks need to be in place, and as any responsible company, I think that's what we are doing as well.
Absolutely. I think once we create any certain product, we are more answerable than before because we have implemented GenAI, right? So coming on that aspect of being compliant and getting it reviewed, you touched upon models, which is the core of Gen AI. And Divya, in Salesforce, when we are kind of looking at all these customer PII data, right, and it's very sensitive. And what are those things that usually a product manager or a product leader has to think about when using certain models where you are exposing this personal data into those models? What, as a product manager, should you be the dimensions that you need to look into it?
See, at Salesforce, the approach we are taking is customers' data is not Salesforce product. So whatever data the customer has is their own data. That data will not be used for training the model, and that data will not leave the system. Other customers cannot leverage it in any way. So that's the basic trust layer that the Salesforce product offers. Now, as a PM that is building use cases on it, I think the platform capability from Salesforce that offers GenAI capabilities ensures that no personally identifiable information, any PII data, doesn't get sent outside and used in any way for retraining purposes. So that's very important. Because the platform takes care of it, we have the liberty to build use cases and be assured that the customer data is not being used for either training the model or by any other customer.
How do you assure that? I'm like, what is that you do to assure your clients that the data that is being used is not going out?
So internally, the data is masked. There is no data that can identify a person, any sensitive data. So PII is just one part of data, but there are other sensitive data points that cannot be sent. So these data points are all masked. So you cannot even make sense because they are anonymous.
It's all encrypted.
Yes.
Right. So I'll move on to Anupam, saying that I think we got like good products that came out, and actually the great learnings are how many times we failed, right? One successful product might have 10 or 100 failure attempts to get there, and that's where we are learning. What is that you in High Radius have seen while we are building the products? What were the failures and lessons that you had in you?
So I'll not talk specifically about GenAI.
Yeah.
But over 10 years, I think multiple pivots.
Especially on the topic of GenAI, when we are trying to build GenAIs,
Okay.
the challenges that you ran into or the learnings that you had.
So challenges that run into, you think you know all, right? As someone was calling out the previous thing, right? You think you know what the customers want, you think you know what the buyers want, and you build it. Only to realize that it is not what they want. And biggest learning for me personally has been, how do you separate a customer stated requirement and a pure business requirement? What customer is asking is not what he needs. How, as a product manager, if you're able to separate that, that makes you a great product manager. Like, it's an example, right? A customer will say, I need ability to send an email. Now, as a product manager, I'll go and build an email capability. But if I had double-clicked, asked him what he was trying to do, why did he want to send an email?
The whys.
The why. It must have been about a notification. And I would have been able to solve it without building that whole email solution, right? But I went ahead and built it and done that mistake myself.
We all do.
So don't forget the whys, right? Ask the whys. Still the basics, right? Much abused, but we still call it the first principles.
Yep.
Still stick to it. Ask those whys. Sometimes it might sound stupid, but it is okay to sound stupid. Ask that question and then build something, right? Else you'll keep falling into the trap of building a lot of features that add no value.
You don't want to become a feature factory.
And especially in the B2B world, you need to be very clear who your user is and who your buyer is and what clicks for both of them.
Absolutely.
What clicks for a user doesn't click for a buyer. The buyer is only focused on the value, dollar value you're saving him. And the user doesn't care about the dollar value. User is how easy it is to use your product. And
how simple is it for him to use it?
And we get sucked into users ignoring the buyers a lot of times.
Yes, thanks. Right, I think whether you're building a GenAI product or a non-GenAI product, the principle is that why you are building it. Is it?
Add a point here.
Sure.
So I think we touched upon the user. Another important point is the value that user is getting out of it. And I want to quote example of IBM Watson, one of the best AI product built in healthcare, way back in 2012. which they were way ahead of their time, right? The way they positioned their product was it's going to replace the doctors.
Yeah.
Now, the user of the product is doctor, and if you see from a doctor's perspective, what value are they getting?
Absolutely.
Right. So building a great product is important, but at the same time, to add to what Anupam said, it's important that you deliver the right value to the user of the product.
I think if I again double click on both the points, as a product manager, you're actually looking at the why that would support the actual user who's going to use, not probably trying to make the job difficult by introducing technology force fitting on it, right? So those are the keeping why as your North Star and do it, right? Uh, while while we're doing this, again, I'm trying to get back to the ground level effect that is having on product managers, especially the people that are working on GenAI products, right? As a product lead, at least what I've been seeing is finding the right talent that can support building these products. Technology has evolved. When we are the conversation that we used to have with engineers, because many of us are engineers who transition into product roles, we know the code, Java, .NET, whatever the code language. But this is a different language that we're talking. It's a data science language, right? And sometimes we need to talk the data language, right? And finding the talent that has this knowledge or the opportunities for the product managers to develop that knowledge, right? How is ADP seeing that? Do you see a talent problem that I'm seeing?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult question to answer.
Hence I gave it to you.
We are, all of us are still figuring it out. So some of the things that we have started doing is looking at least getting people aware about some of these technologies. Like generally the product management approach is, okay, let me talk about the problem, let me talk about the solution at a very high level and move on, right? Don't care about the technology too much. I think that mindset has to change a little bit. We have to start talking about a technology, especially in these era when the technology is changing so rapidly. Like I think we are sitting in those conversations where we are talking about various RAG architectures and stuff like that, which we were not doing before as product managers, right? So there is an element of upskilling for sure. I think that's how we are primarily trying to approach. And the second thing is maybe start evangelizing where you could potentially use things like GenAI or even general AI. Because one of the trends that we traditionally see is, and I think even our panel discussion seems to be honing too much on GenAI rather than actually the problem itself.
Yeah.
We are actually nudging the product managers to, you would hear product managers saying, you know what, I would like to do something around GenAI. It's a good intent, but you should start with the problem. Like I think we have been discussing throughout. So, yeah.
I think you said it right. Have your basics right, which is the whys and the basics of product management, right? And we have a workshop coming up by Sai about how we kind of apply that. But also, this is something that I've tried to do it with myself as I was learning about building the GenAI products. Is at least know the nuances of how a technology works. If not, you are going to write a modeling, you're going into that, but at least kind of try to understand what happens in the process of building that. The data engineering aspects, the modeling aspects, the cleaning, the normalizations. And as I went on it, probably just for the knowledge purposes, data house, we went from warehouses to data lakes to warehouses now, right? And GCPs and all of these technologies thing. It makes life easy for product managers. At least they have an awareness, not in depth, an awareness of that technology to have at least some meaningful conversations when they are talking it. I think that's, I'll probably hold it up here. I think to summarize, still focus on the whys, learn the product management aspect because you are a product advocate, user advocate, right? But technology as it evolves, have an awareness to how you use it, not just building products, but with us, right? To probably, a last question, to leave away the audience with something. In your teams, are there any AI tools that you're using that helps a product manager's job easy to do it? Anyone using any tools in your teams?
Maybe I'll start. I'm sure by the time we end, we'll get quite a few tools as to go away with. So I would start by saying that we are actually experimenting a little bit. We are in very early stages of experimentation because so we deal with a lot of client data, and we obviously want to make sure that we are being very careful in terms of how we handle that data. So some of the things that we have seen recently is we are using GenAI capabilities for release notes, the communication aspect. Once you build the product, you want to communicate that to your downstream partners and so on. So that's one area where we have started using it. And we have experimented a little bit with the Copilot as well. So those are the two prime areas where we have teams.
Nice.
Yeah.
Saurabh?
So I think I'm lucky I'm sitting at the second spot. I know I'm sure by the time it reaches Anupam.
Tools will get covered.
So I think Copilot being one of the major tools that is being used in the product management space. Rally has recently released a feature where it's helping using AI to write test cases as well. So these are two. Now Copilot has so many different use cases. The release note is one of the use cases. Within our group, we are also using Copilot to ideate the requirements. If anybody has experimented with that, I think it gives fabulous ideation. It gives a very good foundational starting point to write the requirements, covers various different scenarios that are possible. Obviously, you can't take that and put it as a user story or a feature, but that gives a good comprehensive starting point for the product managers to start on the requirement ideation.
Thank you. Divya?
See, I'm using a couple of AI tools, like we have Slack, right? And Slack has implemented generative AI use case, which lets you summarize information across multiple channels. So I'm part of so many channels, and it is very overwhelming to understand what's going on, and you don't want to go through all the threads. So it does a very good job of summarizing that information, and I use that on a day-to-day basis. So I'm still on top of it, but I don't have to go through the nitty-gritties. The important stuff is enough. The other one that I think is very interesting is we use our Salesforce Einstein platform to also help generate test cases.
Awesome.
So you can use that to generate test cases and test your models.
Awesome.
I think those are some of those. There are many. I mean, obviously there are internal tools to help with coding and all, but I think these two really stand out and make life very easy.
Thank you.
We've covered most of the tools, so I'll not.
Okay. I'm just using them, so I'm good.
But any information security guys here? No.
Yeah, it's good. All of these tools is good for your knowledge. You cannot use that inside
So
unless it is approved.
Using it actually on your machines is a big challenge, compliance and security as you called out, because what data goes out is going to be very risky. It can be proprietary data, client data, etc. So we're still early days. We'll figure out how to handle that challenge, and then it will become, the curve will be much larger. People are using it on their mobiles, still use it for to ask a question, figure out a response, something. But at scale, I think we have to solve that information security hurdle.
Absolutely, absolutely. With that, thank you so much.